Well, hello everybody and welcome to Digital++. In this episode of Build a Metaverse, we will fix a couple of bugs and we will implement a couple of UX improvements. These updates will significantly improve the overall multiplayer VR experience. The video structure will be quite different from previous videos as there will not be any R&D, but there will be much more video footage. If you haven't watched my previous videos, then this video would be an awesome introduction to see what we've been up to so far, and hopefully will inspire you to subscribe and join the channel. So let's roll up our sleeves and get into the weeds. So let's go into host mode. I will start in the third person view and you see everything works fine. I can move my hands and I can walk forward and backwards. There's obviously sensors in my VR headset. There are sensors in my controllers. There's no sensor for the body. So the body only follows the exact movements of the controllers. If I now turn around 90 degrees, you see what happens. The avatar body does not move with me. So we need to find a fix to let the avatar body move with me when I move around in the real world. So we need to make sure that the position of the avatar is moving when you move in the real world. That's one thing we need to fix. Secondly, we want to make sure that the avatar body rotates when you rotate. Now there's two very different ways to implement that, and there are very different user experiences. So I'm going to implement both of them. First option is when I move around and I gaze at a certain direction, the avatar immediately follows where I am in third person mode. The avatar will physically move to the point where I gaze. That's one user experience. The other user experience is that the avatar does not move, but only the body of the avatar rotates in the direction that I'm looking at. And I think it's up to you to figure out which one you prefer best. So let's start building that now. We go to our prefabs folder. And let's open up the humanoid avatar prefab and open up the humanoid network player script. So we want to detect the movement of the body of the avatar, and for that we want to capture the old position versus the current position between every cycle of update. The camera P offset is currently defined in the update function, but we'll need it in the onNetwork spawn function as well, so we'll move it to the top of the class. We also want to add two serialized fields. One is a boolean, so those are the two different UX experiences, and we make that a serialized field so we can change that in the UI. And then there's an animation threshold, because we're going to make a change to the way we want to move. We need to have a threshold to identify at what speed when we're moving animation should start. And we'll come to that in a bit. We now have a serialized field for the third person and the first person offset. I'll make them separate and I'll initialize them with the value 0, 0, 1.5 and 0, 0, 0, just to be sure that we initialize them properly in standalone mode. At the end of the onNetwork spawn function, so the camera P offset, so that's the rotation of the XR rig multiplied by any of the offsets, so either the third person or the first person offset. So now we go into update and we now have the definition here of camera P offset, so let's comment that out. We don't need that anymore. So I found out that in some situations the avatar hands do not exactly follow the position of the XR rig, and that particularly happens when you start applying quaternion rotations. So we're going to take away all these current calculations for the AV left and the AV right local position. We're going to default to a more simple version. AV left dot position is the myXRRC plus the camera P offset, and we want to do the same for the from hands, and then for the AV right we'll do the same RC position plus camera P offset, and then we want to do the same for the AV right position in case of the hands. And if all is well, then that should all still be working fine. So let's quickly check how this works. So I will start in host mode. I will go to third person view. And yeah, I can still move around. All that works still fine. My hands are moving properly with controllers and my hands are also working fine. Awesome. So that is still working. All right, so the next step is we are going to go to the AV body part of the function. We uncomment the current calculations of the body position and the rotation, and we're going to replace that with some additional code. So we know we have two user experience options. The first option is the avatar follows your gaze of your headset. The second option is that the avatar does not follow the gaze of your head, it just rotates with you. If avatar moves with rotation, then the camera P offset is the AV body rotation multiplied by third P toggle is on, then we do the third P offset, and otherwise the first P offset. And I made a typo. AV body rotation, not right. Else calculate the camera P offset, but it's not the AV body rotation, but it's going to be the myXR rig. And now we need to have the transfer rotation. The AV body position, and we're going to create a new vector 3. Horizontal plane, X and Z, we want to make sure that the avatar body follows the position of your VR camera. So the Y position needs to follow the myXR rig, transform.position, myXR cam position.Z. Or Z, depending on where you live. So the last thing we need to do is we need to set the AV body rotation, and we want the rotation of the avatar body to follow the direction of the headset as well. So we'll do that with a function called quaternion.lookRotation. Forward is avhead.forward, right? So this is the forward direction of the head. Forward.y is 0. We don't want to make any changes in the y direction. And then we say AV body dot rotation is quaternion look rotation forward vector 3 dot up. I just found out I forgot something, so we need to make sure we need to add the camera P offset to the AV body position. All right, let's give it a try. We go to the host, and then we do third person mode. The avatar is still working, and you now see that my avatar is actually rotating its body if I move my head. What you also see is if I move forward and backwards now, or if I do a little bit to the left or to the right, or I will take a step, the avatar is now following the headset in the real world as well, but I could still move my controller and walk forward and walk backwards and combine the two. So the avatar will now exactly track me in the real world as well as in the virtual world, using either the controllers or moving the headset around. Now, the thing you notice is that if I move, then obviously at a certain point in time you lose sight of the avatar, because the avatar body only rotates, it doesn't change its position physically if I gaze. So that will be a different experience, but we're going to show that now because we're going to go to the UI and we're going to stop the application, and then we're going to turn on the avatar moves with rotation, and we're going to test again. We are going to go into the third person view, and you now see that when I move around my headset, you see that the avatar will always at any point in time stay exactly in front of the camera. I could move any direction that I want, and my hands and my head and my avatar is exactly moving that direction. And I could still move forward and backwards, and I can rotate, and you could see the avatar will exactly be always in front of me. There is an issue that you see here, but you see that the avatar is not animating, right? So that's a bit weird. So I could move when I use my controller and it'll animate, but when I rotate and move my head, then the avatar will not animate. So if I move in the real world, I also want the animations to be triggered. So let's add that code now. Okay, so let's go back to our script. I want to go up into the animation switch statement that triggers all the animations. The left controller will decide whether you move forward or backwards. And that's the thing that we now need to add the real world movement. So let's take that away here, because the real world movements will both need to apply in the hand mode and in the controller mode. So you can't just do this in the controller function anymore. So we'll comment this code out here, and later you can completely delete that, but I'll keep it in for now. Now we go to the AV body, and so we want to define a new variable called AV body delta, and that's a new vector 3, which is based on the position of the avatar body in the X direction minus the avatar alt position, so that we can detect every time we enter this function again whether or not we have moved, and if so, how big that movement is. We only want the movement in the horizontal plane, so y is 0, but then remember that we have to invert the z coordinates. Right, and now the AV body delta, that is going to be the AV body rotation multiplied by the AV body delta. So we compensate for avatar body rotations, right? So now we need to do something with animations. If the absolute value of AV body delta in the z direction, if that is bigger than the animation threshold, we want to set the animator is moving is true. And we also want to do an animator set float direction y, v minus AV body delta dot z. So there's two things here. Invert z position and multiply it by a fairly large amount, 50, to make sure that the animation has a sufficient value. If the value is smaller than the threshold and you don't want to do anything, so then we want to do is, well, we want to set the value to 0, that the animation is stopped. Okay, so we need to do something very similar for x, so let's copy paste that. Now it's not the avbody.z, but it's x, and so now we have to have direction x, and this is the avbody's x times 50, and then else the animation set float direction x is 0. All right, if the value of either the x or the z value under the animation threshold, we want to tell the animator to a false. We're not moving anymore. And then last but not least, let's not forget, avatar alt position is AV body.position. All right, so let's see what that does. Start as a host. I'm going to join in third person mode, and let's see, I move around, and that, yeah, you see, I just turned my head and the avatar makes sideward steps. I can go backwards, I can move forward, it'll start rotating, and I can still rotate and move the avatar with my controllers. And again, it doesn't really matter which direction I run, if it always follows the forward direction of the avatar and of whatever I am pointing my head at, right? So it'll just keep on moving forward and backward. And by the way, you should also see that if I turn down my controllers now, and I'm in hand mode, so you can see my hands here, and I can also still move around. You see it also follows my movements. I can move forward, backward. It looks a bit weird here on the video, but you'll see that it actually makes a step. And yeah, the avatar hands are moving, and it is all working fine. Perfect, great, this works. Now that's something I want to show you briefly. Let's go into first person view again, and I'll move in front of the camera. Hi, I'm here. Right, so I can move backwards. I can walk backwards or walk forwards. That actually all follows. Great. Now let's switch to hand mode and let's see what happens. You see, hey, now all of a sudden my avatar hands are completely deformed. So there is a bug in the code that we created in our previous video. Now, controls work fine, but in hand mode, there is something broken. That issue only happens when you run in standalone mode. So this is what happens. So let's assume we switch into first person mode. Then we turn off the mesh renderers. We turn off the XR grabbers. And we turn on the XR direct interactors, because then we're in first person mode. And in switch mesh renderers, what we do, for each skinned mesh renderer, we will disable them. So let's go quickly have a look in Unity. Let's say the avatar body has a skin mesh renderer and we're turned that off. Now the body is gone. Now what happens is, what I found out, is when you do that, for some reason the avatar palm bones, which are part of the bone structure, the position and the rotations are no longer updated. But the weird thing is, the fingertips are still updated. It's only the palm bones of the hands that are no longer updated. And I think that's probably a bug, not 100% sure, but we need to find another solution. So if you go to, for example, the body, we don't turn off the switch mesh renderer, we turn off the mesh. And how do you do that? Well, by removing the mesh. But then when you switch back to third person mode, we need to know where the mesh is located so we can reassign that again. So for that, we go to the top of our humanoid network player script, and we are going to add a dictionary. The entrance of the dictionary will be a string, and the output of the dictionary will be a mesh. And we call that fpdict. It's a new dictionary string mesh, and we can probably probably copy paste that. So this is a dictionary for Bugfix WFS syndrome after grab. We go all the way to the bottom and we go back to the switch mesh renderer. We don't do X enabled is value. And what are we going to do there? If not value, switching to FP mode only, right? Because we don't want to do this in third person mode. Then we're going to add something to our dictionary. x.transform.name, toString, x.sharedMesh. Within this, and that we want to do a debug.log. Then the shared mesh is 0, else, then actually means we're going into 3P mode. First we want to check if the FP dictionary.count. So if this is 0, we started in 3P mode. Then FP dict will still be empty. Then we say mesh y is FP dictionary, and then what do we want to do? We want to find the x.transform name. So now y is the output of the dictionary, should be the mesh, is y. We're going to reassign the mesh again. Debug.log, remove the mesh from the dictionary. And if y does not exist, then we have an error. Apparently, we were looking for a mesh, but we couldn't find it. And obviously, we need to remove fpdict, remove x.transform name. Okay, so I'm going to start in host mode. You see it's storing all the meshes here. We can make it a bit larger. So it stores all the meshes in the dictionary. Great. Now I go to third person mode. It actually removed all the meshes again. I'm going into third person mode and it's storing the mesh. And you see I'm still invisible. And in the third person mode, it restores everything again. So awesome. That all seems to be working. A couple of simple things we can do is the following. In particular, in the avatar XR grabber script, we know now that the network server RPC is working. So let's comment out the debug logs, because it's going to be just quite annoying if you have all these debug messages. So now we are back in Humanoid Network Player and we have a server RPC here as well. So remove this code. So let's go to the XR interaction hands setup. So we can remove the init script, because the init script, if you remember, let's open that. That was to make sure that we force all the gain objects and the avatar and the camera in the right position, but we've now fixed that. So remove the init script, we don't longer need that. All right, so I'm going to host mode and I'm going to switch my hands. You see all these material errors. So all these colors do not exist. So the material Unity hand medium shader doesn't have a color property, etc. So those are quite annoying. Let's see if we can take those away. The first thing we want to check is we go to Window Package Manager. And then what you want to check is whether or not you have the shader graph package. So I already have it installed, but if you don't have that, please install it. It would be just good to have. And so I have currently version 14.08, seems to be the latest version. So we go into assets, we go into samples, XR interaction toolkit 243. We go into hands interaction, runtime, materials. And here we have the Unity dark, light, medium. Let's select all three of them. You know, in the earlier episode, we used the standard shader for this. So now let's go to shader graphs and we use the Unity hand shader. And that should have fixed the issue. So let's see what that does then. So let me pick up my controllers. I can switch to my hands. And you see no more error messages, but so in standalone mode it works, right? You see my hands here and they're transparent, so you can play around a little bit with that. The only thing is that in my headset now, I actually see 4 hands, right? So there's still an issue. It's quite a bit annoying, but for now, let's leave it as it is, or hopefully there will be a fix for that later. I'm not a shader graph expert, so I'm not going to deep dive into that now. The next thing I want to fix is the following. So let's play. Let's start in standalone mode. So I'll start the host and I'll join with the client. And you will see that, yeah, we fixed the hand, but replication of the finger movement is still fairly slow. Right, so I can move very quickly around myself, but it actually is pretty slow in following over the network. So let's go to our prefabs folder. Let's open up the humanoid avatar. Let's double click that. And if you look at the XR rig here, all of the index finger IKs have a client network transform where we have interpolation turned on. So let's turn this off, right? It may be more glitchy, so you get more glitchy reactions, but the finger movement should be much faster. So let's try this and see how that works. So I'm here, let's walk in front of the camera, go into hand mode now. And you now see that my hands are moving much faster than before, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, like V, peace, peace, peace. I can make all these movements and it's now rocket fast. And I think this is a better experience, but it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to keep that. All right, now the last thing I want to do, which is something that was referred to by Xulapa Labs, so thanks very much for providing me with that input, is whether or not we can turn off the UI once you've clicked the button. So let's go to our canvas. Let's go to the launch UI. We can take the toggle and the camera position and move that under launch UI if we haven't done so yet. Under launch UI, let's open the script, void, let's call it turn on off UI. It'll have a Boolean input. True is on, false is off. Host button, game object set active is a value. We'll do the same for the client button. Dot game object to set active is value. Not a surprise. We'll do the same for the voice toggle as well. Well, we want to do that when you press the host button and then also when you press the client button. This one I'm doing in USB mode. Okay. Well, my hands are all mixed up. There you go. All right, so I click the host button and now everything is gone except for the third person toggle, and the debug is also still there. And again, you can decide whether or not you want to keep that. And that rolls up the episode 8 of building a metaverse. In this episode, we identified a couple of user experience issues and bugs, and we tried to fix those. And I think that we have significantly improved the user experience of our application. Please let me know what you think, if you feel this is an improvement, if you have new ideas of what the application could look like and what functionality we could add. Always happy to build in new things. So looking forward to speak to you soon, and goodbye.